The reaction to our last video regarding the struggles of fighting games was amazing. The fighting game community, or FGC, discussed the cancellation of all development on Tekken vs. Street Fighter, the difficulty in attracting new players to the genre, the mistakes made by some of the development teams over the years, and more. Today, let's look at both the dangers and thrills of the injection of esports into the genre and talk about its intricacies.
Round 1. Fight!
Let's be real for a second. The genre is all about fun. Even if a player's just button mashing, it can be a blast to play with friends while bashing them down. Once one figures out how to play the game as intended with special moves and so on, get ready to hear new swear words invented and a fresh desire to get better. This has gone on for decades, and yet fighting games themselves has historically been regarded as a rather niche genre when compared to other AAA categories. Development has tried to combat this in a number of ways with varying success. Initially, Mortal Kombat seemed to really grab the casual crowd with flashy fatalities and secrets left to be found. Characters from a slew of styles were thrown together even if it barely made sense, just in case it grabbed the attention of someone new. As time went on, some of the reaction to the schlock that was tossed onto the market in the early days wore on the core players, and the initial popularity waned as the casual gamers discovered the required difficulty of decent play. Naturally, the best of the best wanted to continue enjoying what they invested so much time in. Tournaments would be set up at game stores and arcades. Initially, this evolved naturally, as the winner would get to continue to play in the arcade off a single quarter. Losers would have to pay to try and defeat the winner. Eventually, egos would inflate, and betting for money started to make it more real. If a player got good enough, maybe he or she could hustle for gas money or at least pay for continued practice.
Round 2. Fight!
Now, the core players started pushing for more of these instances with some organizing tournaments. The internet was just starting to become a tool for fans to schedule events. Players started recording fights and shared them amongst each other. Word of mouth spread, and along with recordings of these fights, players started bringing friends and the player base grew. What was initially started as localized tournaments shifted from Battle by the Bay to the international tournament known as the Evolution Championship Series. Finding proper venues and requiring entrant fees on top of advertising became rather involved. Eventually, what came to be known as Evo Moment 37 helped push the excitement even further. During a fight involving Daigo Umehara of Japan versus the United States' Justin Wong in Street Fighter III Third Strike, the eyes of many were opened, and footage of it has spread on the internet and still talked about to this day. Justin's character Chun-Li had a large health advantage, and Daigo's Ken barely had any life at all. Justin knew that even if Daigo blocked Chun-Li's super move, that the incremental damage or tick damage incurred would be enough to win the round and the match. What no one expected is Daigo attempting and succeeding at parrying the entire super move to prevent any damage while landing his own combo into a super move. Parrying is an already difficult defensive move in the game that requires flawless timing. If done wrong, it gives the exact opposite effect and purposely invites your character to take damage from the opponent. Witnessing a player perfectly parrying a very fast-moving super move 15 times in a row, including timing a jump within those hits, was something that will never be forgotten. The explosionary reaction from the crowd was well-deserved. As time went on, the sharing of moments like these served as great advertising of not only the games, but the events themselves. But therein lies the problem. Larger venues require more resources. The growth continued to other events beyond EVO. Every year brought more contestants, and financing these competitive juggernauts becomes an issue. Even if the entry fees paid for the venues, where and how do you get enough gaming equipment? Monitors, consoles, staff, merchandising, advertising, food, drink, toiletries, professional commentators, you name it, it all adds up.
Round 3. Fight!
Naturally, the companies behind the games picked up on the advertising potential. Many get involved with the community in several different ways, and they sometimes reveal new updates at these events. Streaming tournaments today has become the norm, and production quality has increased as well. This is a very important distinction because the FGC has noticed that growth is essential to maintaining existence. Higher production quality helps make the scene more inviting to the uninitiated and encourages that competitive streak hiding within us all. The more involved a player gets, the higher the chances they may personally attend these events or even compete themselves. The energy can be infectious, and who could say no to the large prize pools offered to a winner? As the number of attendees grow, the likelihood of other related advertising and support goes with it. It's not uncommon to see vendors for game controllers and t-shirts appear at these brawls among many other companies. Players are now being sponsored by various brands to attend these tournaments and represent them. The way they advertise for their sponsors vary, with the most common involving the wearing of clothing with logos. Winners are sometimes invited to beta testing of the games themselves while they are still in development. Popularity of the streams have encouraged the streaming company Twitch to feature them on their front page and recommended sections. Recently, ESPN, a US sports television channel for satellite and cable, has also been broadcasting parts of these tournaments like the Evolution series. Now sure, ESPN has broadcast other tournaments like Halo, Madden NFL, FIFA, Heroes of the Storm, but once they noticed the hype and excitement for fighting games, they decided to bring it more exposure. Today, you can even find a reality TV show on TBS called E-League involving Street Fighter V players.
Round 4. Fight.
Sometimes when money gets involved, problems arise, and esports is no different. Even though growth of the FGC is a requirement for continued existence, and money is required to get more attention from the general public, human nature has reared its ugly head. Contracts can and often do come with restrictions and requirements that demand behavioral changes in the players and scene staff. Collusion and manipulation of the fight results themselves has caused new rules to be added. Bracket seeding has gotten twisted to get certain players to fight each other for specific reasons. And, as with any competitive scene, trash talk that leads to the immature or irresponsible is all here too. Sadly, the FGC has had a historic problem with sexual harassment, and having that shown on camera to the public, as you can imagine, has put a damper on it. Perhaps unsurprisingly, even the games themselves have been a point of contention. Recently, there was quite a bit of drama involving Street Fighter V. Many in the FGC have been disappointed in the title, yet the most famous in the scene have been accused of being a shill. Some of the accusations have been proven, with some stating the only reason they play is because that's where the money is. Some players have been understandably vocally resistant to the increasing issues tied to esports. Typically, they've only known fighting games and their tournaments as a grassroots movement. The harsh attitudes, the pushback to politically correct behavior, and so on has given it a familiar underground feeling that many feels like home. Thankfully, the FGC has typically been very welcoming of all races and ages over the years. Curbing behavior can ruin what the community has established. The unrealistic giant egos tied to mediocre play brings hype to the scene just for the eventual blow-up alone. At the end of the day, though, many would agree that some of the shenanigans shouldn't be shown to the public. Sponsors will pull out. Players getting fined thousands of dollars isn't an unreasonable expectation. It exists in other esports already.
You know what? You suck in this game.
Same thing again, King Brad. Let's go. 1-0. We done? Is that it? Who sucks? Number 3 on the list, you. Number 2, you. Number 1, you. US.
Ignoring the responsibility that goes with becoming a public figure at the top can have savage consequences. The temptation to avoid any and all backlash is there for those with the money too. ESPN forced players to use specific outfits on game characters. Adult language during trash talk can be bleeped, but avoiding it entirely could become a request of anyone involved. That hustling street corner-like behavior could eventually disappear and fake personas could evolve. Audiences can pick up on that, and some might be there purely for the drama. Yet there may be way too many positives outweighing the negatives. The hardcore might even discover new tech due to the huge influx of new players vying for high ranks. That new kid that idolized a player he saw on TV might one day surprise everyone by dominating with an infrequently picked character. One thing's for sure, more discussion is needed. Experimentation by those running these shows and streams should be encouraged as well.
Final round. Fight.
Even though we've seen popular players leave the scene due to their observation of the changes that esports bring, others have been able to make a living from their passion for fighting games. I want to know your thoughts on this highly contested topic in the comments below.
I feel, honestly, as much as I like Street Fighter V the game, that it was the worst major fighting game released in modern history.
This has been Jason for Curse, but before you go, check out our other FGC videos. Put up a quarter when you catch me in the arcades, because I got next.
Download complete.